Dr. Park sat at her desk, her eyes fixed on the data scrolling across her screen. The blue light reflected off her glasses as she analyzed the latest reports from across the galaxy. For the third time this month, a high-ranking female diplomat had abandoned her official duties to pursue a relationship with a human male colonist. This pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. From her research station on Proxima Centauri, Dr. Park had a unique vantage point to observe interspecies interactions. The station served as a diplomatic hub where representatives from dozens of alien civilizations came to negotiate with humanity. What had started as a casual observation was now a full research project. She tapped her stylus against the desk and called out, "Dr. Kim, could you come look at this?" Her colleague shuffled over, his lab coat slightly wrinkled from a long day of work. Dr. Kim was shorter than Park, with kind eyes that crinkled when he concentrated. "These numbers are extraordinary," Park said, pointing to her screen. "The data shows a clear preference pattern across 17 different species. Female aliens consistently show greater attraction to human males than to males of other species, even their own." Dr. Kim leaned closer, adjusting his glasses. "I knew it. The Galactic Science Council called my preliminary report anecdotal and lacking scientific rigor, but these numbers don't lie." The holographic display between them projected colorful charts and graphs. One particularly striking visualization showed the increase in interspecies marriages involving human males, a 400% jump in just 5 years. "This goes beyond mere cultural curiosity," Park said, zooming in on several data points. "Look at the biological markers: increased oxytocin equivalence, pupil dilation, pheromone responses, all consistent across vastly different physiologies." Kim nodded slowly. "It defies conventional xenobiological understanding. These species don't even share a common evolutionary ancestor. They shouldn't be responding to human biochemistry this way." Park saved the data to her secure drive with a quick gesture. "The Council won't be able to ignore this forever," she said, "especially when their own daughters start bringing home human boyfriends." A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Park opened the message. Another incident report. The Altarian cultural attaché had just requested permanent residence on Earth after meeting a human archaeologist. "That's the 4th Altarian official this year," Kim remarked. "Their government must be getting concerned." Park stood up and stretched. She had been sitting for too long. "I need a break. Want to grab dinner at the station hub?" Kim shook his head. "Can't. I'm meeting with the Denebian research team in 20 minutes. They claim to have tissue samples that might help explain the compatibility issue." As Kim left, Park moved to the large observation window of her office. The artificial day cycle was transitioning to evening, painting Proxima's landscape in deep reds and purples. The research station was built into the side of a mountain, offering spectacular views of the valley below where most of the diplomatic residences were located. From her vantage point, Park could see a blue-skinned Tellurian ambassador sitting on a bench in the garden area. Beside her was a human man. Park recognized him as Dr. Jansen from the terraforming department. The Tellurian's skin was glowing with subtle patterns of light that rippled across her arms and face. Park had studied Tellurian biology enough to recognize those patterns. They indicated profound attraction and emotional connection. The same patterns Tellurians displayed during their traditional mating rituals. What made this particularly interesting was that Tellurians were normally a reserved species who rarely formed close relationships outside their own kind. Yet there sat the ambassador, her bioluminescence practically shouting her feelings to anyone knowledgeable enough to read them. As Park watched, the human man said something that made the Tellurian laugh. Her entire body flashed briefly with bright blue light, a sign of joy so intense it triggered an involuntary response. Park turned away from the window, feeling almost like she was intruding on a private moment. She returned to her desk and pulled up her research notes. This pattern had started about 7 Earth years ago, shortly after humanity's expansion to its first extrasolar colonies. Initial contact with alien civilizations had been cautious but peaceful. Trade agreements were established, cultural exchanges began, and diplomatic relations were formalized. Then the first case appeared. A high-ranking Vosgian military officer resigned her commission to remain on Earth with a human musician she had met during a cultural exchange. At the time, it seemed like a romantic but isolated incident. Then similar cases began to appear. A Proxian scientist, an Arcturian merchant, a Deltan diplomat, all abandoning career advancements, breaking family traditions, or defying social expectations to pursue relationships with human males. Park had begun documenting these cases, looking for patterns. Were certain types of humans more attractive to aliens? Was there a correlation with profession, age, or physical characteristics? The data showed no consistent pattern beyond species and gender. Female aliens were disproportionately attracted to human males, regardless of other factors. Her communication device chimed again. It was a message from the station director. Council representatives arriving tomorrow. Prepare your research for formal presentation. High priority. Park felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The Galactic Science Council taking interest meant her work was being taken seriously, but it also meant political complications. She glanced once more out the window. The Tellurian ambassador and her human companion were now walking along the garden path, their hands almost but not quite touching, the Tellurian equivalent of intimate physical contact. What truth lay beneath these strange connections forming across the stars? Was it biochemical, cultural, psychological, or something else entirely? Whatever it was, Dr. Park was determined to find the answer. The implications for interspecies relations and for humanity's place in the galactic community could be profound. As night fell on Proxima Centauri, Dr. Park began preparing her presentation, unaware that her research was about to uncover one of the galaxy's most carefully guarded secrets. 3 months after her initial presentation to the Galactic Science Council, Dr. Park's research facility had transformed. What began as a small observation station now occupied an entire wing of the Proxima Centauri research base. Scientists from 12 different worlds worked in the labs, each bringing unique perspectives and technologies to the investigation. Dr. Park walked through the central corridor, nodding to colleagues as she passed. The council had taken her findings seriously enough to fund a major expansion of her project. Now, they wanted results. She entered the biochemistry lab where Dr. Lee was hunched over a holographic display. Lee was tall and thin with precise movements and an even more precise mind. He looked up as Park approached, his eyes bright with excitement. "Perfect timing," Lee said. "The pheromone analysis is complete." He slid a data tablet across the lab table toward her. Park picked it up, her eyes widening as she absorbed the information. "This can't be right." "I ran the tests 3 times, Lee assured her. "Human males produce a compound no other species can synthesize. It's unique in the galaxy, as far as we can tell." Park examined the molecular structure displayed on the tablet. The compound was elegantly simple, yet unlike anything in their xenobiological database. She shook her head in disbelief. "This shouldn't work across species lines," Park said, pointing to a specific molecular chain. "These receptor bindings are too specialized. Alien physiology shouldn't respond to this at all." "That's what makes it remarkable," Lee replied, standing to join her at the display. He expanded the model with a gesture. "The compound doesn't target specific receptors. It enhances neural plasticity in the limbic systems of nearly all humanoid females." "Like a master key," Park murmured. "Exactly. It doesn't force attraction. It simply makes the brain more receptive to forming new neural pathways, more adaptable, more open to connection." Park placed the tablet down, trying to process the implications. "So it's not creating artificial feelings. It's just removing barriers," Lee finished her thought. "Making it easier for alien females to form attachments to humans by increasing brain plasticity during social interactions." They were interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Han, the team's geneticist. He carried his own set of results on a holographic projector. Park noticed that as Han entered, One of their alien colleagues reacted visibly. Neri was a Vosarian scientist who had volunteered to help with the research. Her species had evolved on a silicon-based world, developing crystalline body structures unlike any carbon-based life. Her translucent skin revealed the circulation of her iridescent blood, and her faceted features could shift and reorient themselves to capture light. And right now, those crystalline features were orienting unmistakably toward Dr. Han, tracking his movements like a flower following the sun. Park had noticed this behavior before but had been too busy to document it properly. Now it took on new significance in light of Lee's findings. Even silicon-based life forms were responding to human males. "I have the genetic compatibility reports," Han said, seemingly oblivious to Neri's attention. He activated his projector, displaying a complex genetic mapping. "There's more to this than just pheromones," Lee continued, pointing to Han's data. "Human genetic material shows unusual compatibility with other species. The hybrid offspring inherit cognitive advantages from both parents." Park leaned closer to examine the genetic models. "How is this possible? We evolved on completely different worlds." "That's the question," Han replied. "By all standard evolutionary models, this level of compatibility shouldn't exist. It's as if something designed it that way." Neri spoke up, her voice musical and crystalline. The three humans turned to look at her. "On my world, we have legends of sky visitors who shaped life. Most scientists dismissed them as myths." An uncomfortable silence followed her words. The implication was too fantastic to consider seriously, yet the evidence before them defied conventional explanation. Park's communicator chimed, breaking the moment. She checked the message and frowned. "Another diplomatic incident," she said. "The daughter of the Arcturian High Command has eloped with a human mining engineer. The Arcturians are demanding an investigation." "The pattern is accelerating," Park whispered, looking around at the lab filled with researchers from across the galaxy. "We need to understand why." Later that evening, Park sat alone in her office, reviewing the day's findings. The pheromone discovery was significant, but it didn't fully explain the phenomenon. The genetic compatibility was even more puzzling. Both pointed to something beyond random evolutionary chance. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Neri stood in the doorway, her crystalline form catching the office lights and breaking them into tiny rainbows across the walls. "May I speak with you?" Neri asked. "About something personal." Park gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Of course." Neri entered but didn't sit. Her kind preferred to stand. "I believe I may be experiencing the phenomenon you are studying." Park tried to keep her expression neutral. "Your interest in Dr. Han?" "Yes." Neri's facets shifted slightly, a sign of emotional discomfort in her species. "I find myself drawn to him in ways that defy rational explanation. My thoughts orient toward him even when he is not present." "How does it feel?" Park asked gently. "Like a magnetic pull," Neri said after a moment. "But internal. My cognitive processes become more flexible when interacting with him. I find myself considering ideas that would never occur to me otherwise. It is both disturbing and exhilarating." Park nodded slowly. "That aligns with our findings about neural plasticity." "There is more," Neri continued. "In my culture, we share memories through direct crystalline resonance. When I attempted this briefly with Dr. Han, with his permission, during a controlled experiment, I experienced something unprecedented, a complete neural compatibility that should be impossible between our species." Park leaned forward. "You didn't include this in your research notes." "I was uncertain how to document it objectively." Neri's inner light pulsed slightly. "Dr. Park, I believe there is something fundamental about humans that we are missing. Something that explains why so many species are drawn to yours despite all evolutionary logic." As Neri spoke, Park's mind raced through the implications. The pheromones, the genetic compatibility, the neural plasticity, all pieces of a puzzle that was beginning to form a startling picture. "Thank you for sharing this, Neri," Park said finally. Would you be willing to undergo some additional tests? With Dr. Hand's participation. Yes, Neri said without hesitation. I believe solving this mystery is important for all our species. After Neri left, Park stared out her window at the alien landscape beyond. The question that had started as a simple observation about interspecies attraction was evolving into something far more profound. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing at the edge of a discovery that would change humanity's understanding of its place in the galaxy. Whatever was causing every alien woman in the galaxy to dream of human men, the truth was likely to be more extraordinary than anyone had imagined. The grand conference room of the Proxima Centauri Research Station had never been so full. Representatives from across the galaxy had arrived for this special symposium on interspecies relations. The room buzzed with different languages, though everyone wore universal translators that converted speech into sounds each species could understand. Dr. Park sat in the front row, watching her colleague Dr. Song prepare for his presentation. As the team's sociologist, Song had spent months studying family structures across different alien societies. His findings had surprised everyone, even Park. The room quieted as Song approached the podium. He was shorter than Park, with calm eyes and a steady voice that commanded attention. Thank you all for coming. Song began, activating the holographic display behind him. Today I will share our team's findings on reproductive social structures across the galaxy. The display showed images of various alien family units, each one organized differently from human families. In 96% of spacefaring civilizations, Song explained, males serve primarily as genetic contributors. They provide genetic material but have limited involvement in offspring development or social bonding. Park watched the audience. Many alien representatives shifted in their seats or made small movements that their species used to show discomfort. The universal translators couldn't hide body language. The concept of partnership-based reproduction is uniquely human, Song continued. Our research has found no other advanced species where males and females form long-term pair bonds that involve shared child-rearing responsibilities. The display changed to show human families across different cultures and time periods. Despite their differences, all showed males actively engaged with children and partners. Human males participate in child-rearing, form deep emotional bonds with their mates, and contribute creatively to their societies in ways that extend far beyond reproduction, Song said. This pattern is nearly unknown elsewhere in the galaxy. A tall, feathered Averian representative raised her wing-like arm. Her feathers were bright blue and yellow, marking her as a high-ranking official. Are you suggesting our civilizations are incomplete? She asked, her translator giving her words a sharp edge. The room grew tense. Park held her breath, knowing how easily such discussions could become diplomatic incidents. Not incomplete, Song clarified with a gentle smile. Specialized, efficient for your evolutionary paths, but perhaps lacking certain emotional dimensions that humans have developed. The Averian lowered her wings slowly, apparently satisfied with this answer. The tension in the room eased slightly. Consider the Drulaxians, Song continued, showing an image of a jelly-like species with multiple reproductive organs. They produce offspring through a complex 5-parent system that is incredibly efficient for their environment. Or the Maranhive societies, where reproduction is managed by specialized queens who never meet their genetic contributors. Park nodded along. She had reviewed Song's research and knew where he was heading. These systems work perfectly for their evolutionary needs, Song said, but they don't create the same emotional connections that humans form through our partnership model. For the next hour, Song walked through comparative data on family structures, emotional bonding patterns, and child development across 20 major species. The statistics were clear. Humans spent far more time forming emotional connections between partners and with their children than any other known species. When the presentation ended, the room filled with excited conversation. Some aliens seemed troubled by the findings, while others approached Dr. Song with eager questions. Park slipped out of the conference room. She needed some quiet time to process what she had heard. Even though she had reviewed Song's research beforehand, hearing it presented so clearly had given her new insights into their overall investigation. She made her way to the observation deck on the top level of the station. This was her favorite place to think. The large, transparent dome offered a perfect view of Proxima Centauri's red glow and the strange, beautiful landscape of the planet below. To her surprise, Song was already there, standing alone at the railing that circled the deck. He was staring up at the stars, lost in thought. "Great presentation," Park said, joining him at the railing. Song turned, looking slightly startled before smiling at her. "Thanks. Did you see how uncomfortable some of them were?" "Hard to miss," Park replied. The Vosarian delegate nearly cracked her crystalline face, trying not to react. They both chuckled, then fell into a comfortable silence, watching the stars together. "I didn't tell them everything," Song admitted after a while. His voice was quieter now, almost a whisper. "The complete data suggests something even more significant." Park turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" "Most advanced species in our galaxy evolved from collective organisms, hive minds, group intelligences, spawning pools." Song gestured upward at the stars. "The Avirians evolved from flock-breeding birds, the Tellurians from colonial water organisms, the Arcturians from insect-like hives." "And humans?" Park asked, though she already knew the answer. "Only humans evolved from pair-bonded primates," Song said. "Our direct ancestors formed male-female partnerships for millions of years before we became human. It's embedded in our biology, our psychology, our social structures." Park nodded slowly, understanding the implications. "Making humans uniquely equipped for romantic attachment, for deep personal bonds between individuals." "Precisely," Song said, "and perhaps explaining why so many find human partnerships irresistible. We offer something that doesn't exist in their evolutionary experience, a type of emotional connection their species never developed." They stood in silence again, contemplating the vastness of space and the strange paths evolution had taken on different worlds. "Have you ever wondered," Park said finally, "if there's more to it than evolution? The genetic compatibility Dr. Hand discovered doesn't make evolutionary sense. Neither does the pheromone response Dr. Lee found. And now this unique social structure." Song looked at her curiously. "What are you suggesting?" "I don't know yet," Park admitted, "but these pieces fit together too neatly to be random chance." Below them, in the habitat area, Park could see several interspecies couples walking together. A human man with a tall, green-skinned Relaxian. A human engineer talking animatedly with a floating Miran female. Each couple seemed wrapped in their own private world, despite their physical differences. "The Galactic Council is growing concerned," Song said, following Park's gaze. "I heard they're convening a special session about the human situation. They're worried about the social disruption as more alien females form partnerships with human males." "Let them worry," Park replied. "We need to focus on the science. There's something fundamental we're still missing, something that explains all of these patterns together." As they watched the couples below, a thought formed in Park's mind, a theory so unexpected that she almost dismissed it immediately. But the more she considered the evidence, the more plausible it seemed. What if humans weren't just another evolved species? What if there was purpose behind their unique characteristics? Park decided to keep these thoughts to herself for now. She needed more evidence before suggesting something so controversial. But as she looked at the stars above and the interspecies couples below, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's place in the galaxy was far more significant than anyone had imagined. "We should get back," Song said eventually. "The reception will be starting soon, and the Galactic Anthropological Society expects us both to attend." Park nodded, but her mind was already racing ahead, forming new research questions and experimental designs. Whatever the truth was about humans and their strange attractiveness to alien women, she was determined to find it. Dr. Park couldn't sleep. Her mind was too full of questions after the conference. She had returned to her quarters on the research station, but instead of resting, she was reviewing data files from the past 6 months of research. Something about the pattern still eluded her, a missing piece that would tie everything together. Her computer terminal chimed softly at exactly 300 hours, an incoming message with the highest encryption level. Park frowned. Nobody sent encrypted messages at this hour unless something was wrong. She pressed her thumb to the security scanner, and the message appeared. Ancient ARC-8IV found. Humans, not natural evolution. Come at MEMEDAKELOI. The sender was Dr. Choi, an old colleague who now worked at the Mars Archaeological Center. Park had sent him some of her research months ago, but hadn't heard back until now. Below the message were coordinates for a private shuttle and authentication codes that would get her past security checkpoints. Whatever Choi had found, he clearly didn't want official channels to know about it. Park packed quickly and quietly. She left a message for Dr. Kim saying she had a family emergency and would return in a few days. It wasn't like her to lie, but something in Choi's message had triggered a deep sense of urgency. The journey to Mars took 18 hours in the small shuttle. Park spent most of it reviewing her notes and wondering what Choi could have discovered. The phrase, humans, not natural evolution, kept repeating in her mind. The shuttle landed at a small private dock away from the main Mars colony. A hooded figure met her at the landing pad and led her to a surface vehicle without speaking. Only when they were inside and moving did the figure remove their hood. "Thank you for coming so quickly," Dr. Choi said. He looked older than when Park had last seen him, with new lines around his eyes. "We don't have much time." "What's this about, Choi? Your message was rather dramatic." Choi's eyes darted to the vehicle's windows. "Not here. The walls have ears, as they say, even on Mars." They drove for nearly an hour across the red Martian landscape. Finally, they reached what looked like an ordinary research outpost, one of dozens scattered across this region of Mars. But instead of entering the main building, Choi led her to what appeared to be a storage shed. Inside, he moved a stack of equipment to reveal a hidden elevator. "Quick," he said. "The security systems will only be looped for another few minutes." The elevator descended deep into the Martian crust. When the doors opened, Park gasped. They were in a vast underground chamber that clearly wasn't built by human hands. The architecture was smooth and flowing, with strange symbols etched into walls that glowed with a soft blue light. "What is this place?" Park whispered. "It's an archive," Choi said, leading her further inside. "Built by the precursors." "The precursors? You mean the theoretical ancient species that some fringe archaeologists believe seeded the galaxy with life?" Park was skeptical. "That's a myth, Choi." "It was a myth," he corrected her, "until we found this place 2 months ago during a routine mining operation." They reached the center of the chamber where several workstations had been set up. Holographic projections filled the air, strange diagrams, DNA sequences, and alien text. "The precursors left these records," Choi explained, activating one of the larger projections. It showed what appeared to be early hominids on Earth being genetically modified by tall, slender beings. They engineered early hominids as companion species. Park stared at the projection, her scientific mind racing to process what she was seeing. "Companion species? For whom?" "For everyone," Choi said. He expanded the hologram to show an image of the galaxy with hundreds of worlds highlighted. The precursors foresaw an emotionally isolated galaxy. They found that intelligent species almost always evolved for efficiency, not connection. Hive minds, collective intelligences, specialized reproductive castes. All efficient ways to advance technologically, but all lacking in deep emotional bonds between individuals. Park watched as the hologram showed the precursors visiting planet after planet, studying the life forms that were evolving there. "They saw the pattern," Choi continued, "and they decided to create a solution. They took primates on Earth, already showing signs of pair bonding, and accelerated their evolution. They engineered them specifically to form deep emotional connections, to value individuality while maintaining social bonds, to create art and music that could touch the emotions of other species. They engineered humans. Park's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, to be companions for the galaxy. The perfect partners, genetically compatible with a wide range of species, producing pheromones that enhance neural plasticity, psychologically oriented toward forming deep bonds with individuals rather than collectives. Park's mind raced back through all her research findings. The unique pheromones, the bizarre genetic compatibility, the singular social structure of human families. It all suddenly made perfect sense. "Does the Galactic Council know this?" she asked. Choi's face darkened. "They've known for centuries. They found another archive like this one long before humans reached the stars. And they kept it secret. Why? Power," Choi said simply. "The major species that control the Council evolved from collective organisms. Their societies are built on cooperation through hierarchy and specialization. Human individualism, human emotional connections. These things are deeply disruptive to their way of life." A shadow moved near the entrance to the chamber. Park glimpsed the distinctive black and silver uniform of Galactic Security Forces. "They're here," Choi whispered, his face paling. "The Council must have detected the security breach. They've suppressed this knowledge for centuries because they fear human integration will destabilize galactic power structures. But why allow humans into the galactic community at all?" Park asked, her heart racing. "They couldn't stop our technological advancement," Choi said quickly, working at a control panel. "And they need us, for the same reason the precursors created us. Their societies lack what we provide. But they want to control the narrative, keep us as a curiosity, not equals." The shadows at the entrance grew larger. Park could hear the soft hum of energy weapons powering up. Choi pressed a small device into her hand. "This contains all the archive data. Download it to your neural implant. Now." Park hesitated only a moment before placing the device against her temple. She felt a strange tingling as massive amounts of data transferred directly to her implant storage. A bright flash of energy hit the wall just beside them. A warning shot. "That's your only chance to surrender," called a voice from the entrance. "Hand over the human female and all copies of the archive data." Choi pulled a small weapon from inside his coat. "We need to split up. There's another exit behind that panel." He pointed to the far wall. "It leads to an escape pod that will take you to Earth." "What about you?" Park asked. "I'll hold them off," Choi said grimly. "Someone has to get this truth to Earth. Our people deserve to know what they are, what they were meant to be." Another energy blast hit closer, showering them with rock fragments. "Run," Choi said, pushing her toward the hidden exit as he turned to face the security forces, his weapon raised. The truth must reach Earth. Park ran, the weight of millions of years of secret history now stored in her neural implant. If she could reach Earth with this knowledge, everything would change, not just for humanity, but for every species in the galaxy. Behind her, she heard the distinctive sound of energy weapons firing, and then Choi's weapon returning fire. She didn't look back. She had a mission now, and the fate of human-alien relations throughout the galaxy depended on her success. The grand chamber of the United Earth Assembly was packed beyond capacity. Dignitaries from every human nation crowded the main floor, while the observation galleries overflowed with journalists and citizens lucky enough to gain entry. The emergency session had been called with little warning, adding to the tension that filled the room. Dr. Park stood before them all, her small figure dwarfed by the massive display screen behind her. For 3 hours, she had methodically presented the evidence recovered from the Mars archive. The data from her neural implant had been verified by Earth's top scientists, confirming its authenticity beyond reasonable doubt. The escape from Mars had been dangerous. 2 galactic security ships had pursued her escape pod, but Earth's defense forces had intervened, ensuring her safe arrival. Her journey had sparked a diplomatic crisis, but that was nothing compared to the revelation she brought. As she finished presenting the final pieces of evidence, a heavy silence fell over the chamber. No one spoke. No one moved. The weight of humanity's true origin story pressed down on everyone present. Finally, the Secretary General rose from her seat. She was an older woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen decades of human history unfold. Now she faced the most significant revelation in that history. "So," the Secretary General said, her voice echoing in the silent chamber, "humans were designed as the galaxy's companions." "In essence, yes," Park replied. She gestured to the display behind her, showing the genetic modifications the precursors had made to early hominids. Our capacity for individual attachment, emotional expression, and creative thinking wasn't random mutation. It was purposeful design. Murmurs filled the chamber as people turned to their neighbors, struggling to process this information. Some faces showed wonder, others anger, and many simply looked lost. A diplomat from the African Union stood, raising his hand to be recognized. "Does this diminish us?" he asked, his deep voice carrying a hint of anger. "Make us less than autonomous beings? Are we merely pets created for the emotional comfort of other species?" The murmurs grew louder, more concerned. Park could feel the mood of the room shifting toward fear and resentment. "Does knowing your parents hoped for a child diminish your life?" Park asked in response. Her voice was calm but firm. "We didn't choose our origins. No species does. But we choose our future." She advanced to the next image, showing the precursors themselves, not as conquerors or masters, but as scientists and creators. "The precursors didn't create us to serve," Park explained. "They saw a galaxy evolving toward emotional isolation, species after species developing intelligence through collective structures, hive minds, group organisms, specialized castes, all efficient for survival, but all missing something essential: deep individual connections." Park showed data from her original research, the statistics on interspecies attraction, the pheromone analysis, the genetic compatibility reports. "They gave us gifts," she continued. "The ability to bond deeply with others, the capacity to express and understand complex emotions, the biological compatibility to form connections with species very different from ourselves. These aren't weaknesses or signs of subservience. They're strengths." The Secretary General leaned forward. "What of the Galactic Council? If they've hidden this truth for centuries, what will they do now that we know?" "They're divided," Park said. "Some members want to contain the information, continue controlling human integration into galactic society. Others recognize that the truth offers a new path forward, not just for humans, but for all species." "And Dr. Choi?" asked another diplomat. "The man who helped you discover this?" Park smiled slightly. "He survived. He's been granted asylum on Tellurian Prime. Their government was the first to break with the Council's official position after I shared the archive data." The debate continued for hours. Some argued that humanity should withdraw from galactic affairs, focusing on its own development free from the Council's influence. Others saw opportunity in embracing the role the precursors had envisioned. There were no easy answers, but at last, the Assembly voted to share the truth with all of humanity and to use it as the foundation for a new approach to interspecies relations. 6 months passed. The revelation about human origins had sent shockwaves through Earth society and across the galaxy. Some humans had reacted with anger, others with pride, and many with a renewed sense of purpose. The Galactic Council had initially imposed sanctions against Earth, but as more member species learned the truth, the Council's united front had crumbled. Dr. Park stood on the observation platform of the newly opened Interspecies Cultural Center in Geneva. The sprawling complex had been built to facilitate greater understanding between humans and alien species. From her vantage point, she could see the central gardens where visitors from dozens of worlds mingled freely. A human family shared a picnic with a Tellurian couple, their blue skin glowing softly in the sunlight. Nearby, a human teacher led a group of young Avirians in a traditional Earth dance, their feathers fluttering as they moved. Most remarkable of all were the children, hybrids of human and alien genetics, playing together beneath Earth's sun. Park's communicator chimed softly. The message was from Dr. Choi, now serving as Earth's special envoy to species seeking closer relations. She smiled as she read his update. Progress report. 7 more worlds requesting open migration treaties. The truth is spreading. She placed the communicator back in her pocket and continued watching the scene below. A human man was showing a group of alien children how to fly colorful kites in the summer breeze. The children, representing 4 different species, laughed with delight as their kites soared upward. Near the fountain, Dr. Kim was deep in conversation with Nari, the Vocerian scientist. Their relationship had blossomed since the truth became public, freed from the shadows of secrets and conspiracy. They were pioneers of a new kind of interspecies partnership, one based on knowledge and choice rather than mysterious attraction. Park felt a deep sense of satisfaction as she observed all of this. The path forward wasn't simple. Many challenges remained as humanity and other species navigated this new understanding. The Galactic Council was reforming, with younger members pushing for more open policies. Some conservative species had cut diplomatic ties with Earth, fearing the disruption that human emotional connections brought to their hierarchical societies. But overall, the truth had proven liberating. Humans now understood their unique place in the galaxy's ecosystem. Alien species could choose whether to embrace the emotional dimensions that contact with humans offered. Relationships could form based on informed choice rather than mysterious compulsion. Perhaps the precursors had engineered humans with a specific purpose in mind, but in fulfilling that purpose, bringing emotional connection to a galaxy that had evolved toward isolation, humans had found their own unique destiny among the stars. Park smiled as a gust of wind sent the children's kites dancing higher into the blue Earth sky. Whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity now faced them with the truth of its origins and the freedom to choose its future.